everyone. Welcome to the Overseas Famous podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Owens. Joined, we got a plethora today. Solomon Hughes, the star of Winning Time on HBO, is joining us today to talk about his experience. Also, few people know that Solomon also played pro basketball, college basketball. So we're going to pick his brain about that. Our man, Aaron Maxey, is back to Aaron and Solomon know each other from way back, so should be a fun show. And of course, producer Matt, how's everyone doing? We all good today?
Great.
Doing
as hot
good.
as everything down here in the South.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's really hot down there right now.
Yeah, it's been 100.
It's weird because I'm in, the Jersey, like right outside of Philly, and it's actually been freezing cold. It's been, I've been sitting at my daughter's swim practice. Like, I don't know how you're doing it, Liv, because it's like 60 degrees and you're swimming. But I know that heat's coming my way, so I'm just gonna enjoy it now. So first off, it's hard not to fanboy, because Aaron, I don't know if you're like this. I've played with Allen Iverson. I've played, with a lot of big NBA players, and never really got excited. Was just like, you're just like me. You're slept way better, but you're just like me. But Solomon, it's cool because with an actor or something, with someone when I watch on TV, it's a different feeling. It's not like someone I'm just like, I can't do what you can do. So it's always exciting. So I just wanted to start off. Winning Time was my jam, like that every single time. Loved it, loved you in it. It was incredible. The theme song is still rocking I rock it on Apple Music all the time. It's incredible. I just think the whole show was perfect. So
awesome. Thank you.
It was you were very well done. It was great. And kind of, I know a lot of stuff has come up with the Lakers and things like that and what they said. Have you had a conversation with Kareem? Have you ever had that conversation with him?
No. So I've never gotten the opportunity to meet Kareem. My younger brother, who Aaron knows, my younger brother Gabriel Hughes, who also played at Cal and actually played for the Defenders years ago. And he had the opportunity to meet Kareem because Kareem was I guess he was in the facility. But yeah, he's the only one of the two of us that's had an opportunity to meet him. So I haven't, no.
That's crazy. I always I'm thinking even about the NBA draft tonight and all these young guys, and Winning Time was such a hit that it must be pretty cool to, Kareem's obviously older, and obviously we see on the internet, you can see pictures and stuff. But even when I look at you, it's weird because I make that association. I'm like, oh, there's, you played it so well that's what people are going to associate. Young people are going to look at you and be like, oh my gosh, that's Kareem. Is that like something that's pretty cool to be like, oh wow? Well,
yeah, at least shout out to the hair and makeup people. I mean, the wig. I remember the day that I walked onto set and saw that the wig that they had created for me. I was like, wow, okay, they're not going halfway with this at all. And then the makeup job. I mean, the brows, the beard, all that. I mean, it was, it's talking about a few hours at least every morning in the chair, getting the work done. And so I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like I really benefited from, when they put the makeup on, you look in the mirror, you're like, okay, I'm in, I'm locked in, I'm ready to go. And so, but no, for sure. I mean, it is. So we had an opportunity, Quincy Isaiah, who plays Magic, and Rodney Barnes, who's one of the executive producers and writers. We had an opportunity to talk with Spencer Haywood, and to your point about some of the younger generation learning more about the game and associating us now with the game. Spencer was talking about how there's much more awareness around the role he played in allowing high schoolers and college players to pursue their basketball dreams early. And so it's absolutely cool to be connected to kind of, bringing those eras together. And then of course the Showtime era. I mean, when you talk about just how sports and entertainment were merged in this really powerful way that we are all witnessing today. It was like we got to get into a time machine and travel back to the 80s and play a part in making sure that people know this story and know the importance of that organization and the individuals that are part of it.
It's funny because when you talk about some of those guys who kind of played those different parts. I mean, like Wood Harris same thing. I'm a huge Wire fan, so
Man.
Like that was something I was like, oh, I love that Wood is in this. He's just terrific.
Yeah, Wood is incredible. I mean, I feel like it was actually cool. The day Wood came, the first day everybody got to see Wood, because they ran basically a basketball training camp right alongside filming production. So it was like any day you weren't filming, you were doing basketball choreography, et cetera. And so the day he walks in the gym, they had everybody there because they were prepping for some of the stuff in episode 4 where there's training camp in the desert. So he walks in and everything stops and everybody's just taking him in, man. And I will say the coolest thing that happened was he he saw me, he pointed at me and walked across the gym and said, I'm looking forward to working with you, young fella. And I'm like you, Kevin, I'm an enormous fan of The Wire. I've gone through the series at least 5 times. I mean, I'm like, I feel like culturally, it is like one of the most important pieces of art that has ever happened in the country, in our country, maybe the world. And so, yeah. And then, he was actually pretty chill because everybody starts coming around him and they're like, throwing lines out from The Wire, throwing eyes, like paid in full, et cetera. And he was just, he was chuckling. So it was cool. It was great.
That is so cool.
My question, Solomon, is, with that, I mean, we've grown up with, a bunch of guys who played in the league and everything else, and they're our friends,
right? Right.
So from that standpoint, there really isn't the fangirling in that sense, because those are our friends. We can say that we've known them since we were 12, 13, 14 years old. Right. And everybody went through the same things. But when you came across, Woodard like that, did you feel like there was a bit of kind of fangirling, like, I know his lines?
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? So I told Wood, I was like, I didn't say it to him the very first day because I was like, I don't want to like freak him out. But when we were in makeup, like maybe 2 days later, I was like, so I got to tell you that I had a Remember the Titans poster in my apartment. I just got to keep it real. Like seriously, that film was so dope. You were Julius Campbell. You were so crazy. But then of course we're talking about The Wire. I will say the other cool thing about The Wire and just like the Wire family, I got to meet Wendell Pierce. Okay. Because when I got the part, I mean, I was like, I just really want to be a sponge and absorb as much as I can about learning the craft. And so I actually flew to London and watched Wendell Pierce in Death of a Salesman 3 nights in a row. Wow. And after every single performance, he would take me to grab a drink and just kind of talk about acting. And it was wild, man. It was so crazy. So yeah, so to your point, Aaron, I mean, it's just, and it's obviously Avon Barksdale. That's not the kind of guy you would want to approach, right? But like, it's Wood Harris. It's like, it was wild. It was a really, really cool experience. So
I love like the cool. Idris Elba is like in Travelocity or whatever the commercial is, and he's like all cheery and stuff. I'm just like, it's weird when you see that and you're just like, String, what are we doing right now?
Right. Yeah.
It's always that association. And it's funny because I reached out like jokingly on Twitter. I was like, listen, season 2, if you need a Kevin McHale, I like posted a picture of me playing in the D League next to like Kevin McHale box now. I'm like, listen, I'm 6'10". I probably have to lose some weight, but
definitely a lot of weight loss. So I lost like, I mean, at one point I lost 30 pounds. I got down 30. Because when I auditioned, I was 250. And obviously that's not really what 80s basketball players were looking like. And so, so yeah, I mean, I will say I was inspired. I follow Aaron on Instagram and I feel like his posts are just inspiring. So I'm like, get your butt in the gym. And so I'm like, trying to keep pace and, but I will say, because when I stopped playing, I mean, I feel like I walked away from the game like in 2005. So it was like 3, maybe 4 years of really just trying to piecemeal together somewhat of a career. And then I walked away from the game. And so this was a really fun reintroduction. And real talk, Aaron, looking at your post, I was like, we're the same age. Aaron is grinding. I can do this. I can get back into basketball shape. So,
it's in our DNA. That's the thing, we've been playing for so long and the discipline that's been there, it's just a matter of locking in, and it's all about, what type of goals, we're looking for, so, for myself, my goals had changed as, I began the new journey with, figuring out what Crohn's disease was and how that was affecting me and how, I had a 5-year window when I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something was up. So that had a shift. So with that shift, it's a lifestyle change. And just like you're saying, with the AIDS and, and I got a couple questions, that, asked, but we look at the 80s ball player and we know the stories with Riles, having to do, their 2 miles under 12 minutes.
Right.
Right. So, it was one of those things where basketball players at that time, they weren't big, bulky guys like we are now. And even with just the trend, because if you really think about it, that that late 2000s, it was guys were getting so big that they couldn't move.
Right.
And they're losing all their speed and athleticism. And then around kind of 2015, then it was get all that extra weight, all that extra muscle off you so you can start moving again.
Yeah.
I feel like, that do you think that was like not to get off topic, but do you think that was like almost like a Jordan stopper? You think about all the guys who were able to subdue Jordan. You had the Knicks had, and these big, huge, strong guys who were trying to able to subdue him. Do you think like the league got stronger because they were just like, someone has to knock Jordan down every single day, because everyone was skinny back in the day, and then Jordan was coming in and doing all this stuff, and they're like, get someone out there to knock him on his butt every time. Lift weights. Like Bill Laimbeer was doing it, but Bill Laimbeer looked like he's just like a big, just no definition or whatever. He was just a big bruising guy, but like they started getting, the big strong guys that start subduing Jordan. And I think that's like when the league started changing, either that or people just, realized that their bodies would, you want to look good with your shirt off too.
Well, I mean, as a player who's played, for a long time, I just think that, just through, I don't 100% agree with all sports, sports science. Mm-hmm. But I think that with a lot of the sports science, as far as with the nutrition and understanding, supplements and, trying to get, proper rest and, being able to know that you can lift weights and still be able to shoot the ball. Because, the old wives' tale was, if you shoot, then, if you lift, your shot's going to be off, right?
That's right.
So, we're able to kind of break a lot of those stereotypes, a lot of those molds. And the difference became, because Jordan would always tell the stories, and we've all read the books, he'd lift on game days, he was lifting weights, and he was with Grover and all that stuff. And I think just through his success of being basically an Iron Man, he'd play 82 games a season, he wasn't taking nights off, and he knew that people were spending X amount of money to see him perform, and he wasn't the only one at that time. All kinds of players would play every night. They weren't taking nights off. So there was something that had to be said with, the eating, the weightlifting, resting, going hand in hand. I mean, as with Solomon, I mean, you studied Kareem, and we all know, when he was in Enter the Dragon, and, with him and his limberness and everything else, there's something that had to be there. It was a different type of working out, but it was able to work for him, his body type, and it was able to give him longevity.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, nice shout out for the Game of Death, a little clip that they put in. That was a very, very cool opportunity. I mean, thing to shoot that really, like you said, complements the story. But yeah, I mean, I started doing yoga. I mean, I'd done yoga prior, but I really was doing it really just about every day when we were like towards, let's say, midway through filming. And, I mean, it's like to the points that all you guys are making, when you think about, like, I think, he only sat out a handful of games, right? Mm-hmm. He was obviously very, very strong, very limber, but when I look at like some of the yoga poses that he can hold, it's just like, man, that's something to aspire to, right? So yeah, to your point, I feel like it's always been fascinating to me how when you see someone who's had a lot of success, it's like there's something that they're doing in training that really kind of catches fire, right? And so it's actually really cool to see how many more players have picked up like yoga and Pilates, et cetera. So
yeah, that was a big Tim Duncan thing. Dunk used to always talk about how he would do Pilates, and he was kind of that skinny body, but so limber and quick turns. It just definitely helps. So Solomon, you played college basketball. You go and play a little professional basketball. You head down to Mexico. I mean, I've heard stories of Mexico, Aaron, I'm sure, but like, I don't know how the experience was, but what would you say was the draw to acting? I know, in that Southern California area, But what was the draw to acting where you're like, this is what I want to pursue? Because I know
Sure,
a lot
you
of
know,
guys who would love to do this.
Yeah, and Aaron, so it's Kevin, where are you from? Are you from back east?
Yeah, I'm from East. Yeah.
You're from, okay. So Aaron probably relates this. I feel like growing up in Southern California, it's kind of the entertainment realm is kind of in the backdrop of everything, right? So it's like people who are in a commercial or who are in a show. So it's like there's always that possibility that's kind of looming. And so I think I was most interested. I'm obviously fully invested now, but when I was graduating from Cal, Robbie Jones, who has had a fabulous career. He's been in One Tree Hill, 90210. He was in Tyler Perry's Temptation. He played ball at Cal, and he moved down to LA. And there were a number of other athletes, like I said, football players, who were really going on auditions, et cetera. And so when I graduated and I came down, and I was prepping to play in the Summer Pro League or the Long Beach Summer Pro League.
Yeah.
And during pickup games, guys would be talking about these auditions that were going on. I was like, I want to do this. And so I went and I met with a talent agent, and the guy was just he was a jerk, just straight up. But at the very least, I did get one audition for, I think it was an Advil commercial. I didn't get it, but it like whetted the appetite. And I was like, this is really cool. And then like you guys, I'm a huge fan of film, TV, theater. And so I've always been interested in the space. And, it's like, even if it's like just getting typecast as like the tall basketball player, hey, you still get a job and you still get to be a part of a project, right? So since college, I had been sending in, my photos, sending in like my body measurements, just to see if there was any like from talent agencies, et cetera. And like nothing was happening. And so I tell people like straight up, when the audition opportunity came, I was just excited to just hear feedback. No, yes, whatever. Like, this is cool. Just to get my foot, not even like just to not get my foot in the door, just to get to the door and see if this is something I could do. And so, and then when you start hearing like, wow, okay, you got some talent, there's something really there. Like, that's really empowering. And so, and then the other thing is I feel like, we're all tall basketball players, and I think we're in this era now where I think the way bodies are showing up in screen, there's way more diversity, which I think is great, right? I mean, and there's just so many more platforms and venues to tell stories. And so, yeah, it's cool to be a part of something where obviously like I'm similar to the dimensions of the character, but it's not just about basketball. Like I do joke that if I had to have played basketball for the audition, I'm not sure I would have got the part because I had not touched the ball in a long time.
I actually auditioned for a movie called Rucker that was supposed to, and Solomon, it was the exact opposite. I was still playing at the time, and I auditioned in like a basketball workout, and I got the part strictly on my basketball skills. And I don't think they were going to offer me any lines or anything like that, but it was the exact opposite. They're like, okay, he can play. He's good. He'll be in the backdrop. He's not going to say anything. But then the movie never got made, and that was the end of my acting career.
Well, it's funny with what Solomon was saying, because, growing up in SoCal with a lot of the places we play at, we would have actors and, musicians and people just at our games, regardless of where we played. I mean, I remember, doing the battleground stuff, and, Tyrese is popping up, Mike Epps is popping up, and these, Tyrese is our age. And he's really kind of, I want to say it was right after Fast and Furious, I think the second one. So, he's really starting to pop, music's going on. But these are, again, people that we see kind of on a consistent basis. And, through Nike, I was able to get a couple commercials and stuff like that. And it was, it's just like with, what was the basketball, Coach Carter. For whatever the reason was with Coach Carter, I know a lot of our friends are in that. And I was thinking of the time period. I'm like, okay, this is 2003, 2004 when it was filmed. It's just like, okay, where was I playing wise? Because it was, we were gone, and these were the guys who stayed home.
Right.
So like Kenny Jackson and, those guys, they were around. So, the acting stuff with SoCal, it's always there. And I think with certain celebs, or singers, you're kind of like, oh, that's so and so. Like, I remember playing out at Venice Beach playing in the prime out there, and Brian McKnight's playing.
Yeah, Brian McKnight.
And it's like,
wow.
that's Brian McKnight.
Yeah,
And he can hoop.
yeah.
He can buckets.
Right,
So
right,
it's like, these are some real guys who can really play. But then, after you're starstruck for all of the 30 seconds, it's just a regular guy because we're
Right. I do think like basketball is the ultimate calm. It just, once you kind of, like you said, you get over that initial starstruck and you're like, all right, let's go. And then I feel like there's got to be like a little air of I'm gonna try to impress and just be like, oh wow, Brian McKnight just said I can hoop. Like that's a compliment I'm taking with me.
Right.
I always think about anxiety. When you have anxiety playing basketball, like not just like that, everyone's had those nerves before a big game. When you're playing a role where you're taking on the role of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and you're, the camera's about to start shooting, do you have any of that, like those, when you compare them to when you were playing, those kind of nerves that you experience?
No, it's a great question. I was actually talking to somebody about this today. So I feel like when we played, there really wasn't the word anxiety, right? It was just like, you need to just get ready, whatever, like,
exactly,
flush the excuses. Right? I struggled mightily with anxiety. I mean, even when I look at some of my old tapes, I had like tics where I was always fun, fooling with my jersey, chewing my tongue. I was just like a nervous wreck. And it was beyond the basketball court. It was like literal anxiety issues that I had just as a person in general. And so I will say there was the eagerness before tip off, right? Where you're like, how is this going to go? Right. Which wasn't as terrifying as anxiety. I definitely felt like I do have some of that with me every time the cameras start rolling. And I welcome that, right? Because I feel like that if you're feeling that, there's a humility around what you're about to do. And obviously you want to be confident, you want to be assured. And I mean, that's part of just the prep you do, right? You make sure you know the moment, you know the script, you know the lines, you know what you're trying to work towards. And and you're kind of you're in sync with your with who you're on screen with. And so absolutely, I mean, every time, I tell people, I don't know that I've prayed as much as I did over the 8 months that we were filming. Literally, I had this prayer, just every single time they would say rolling. I'm like, God, go before me, go behind me, go around me. And just, you step in there. And it's like one of those things. The other thing about it is being in this creative space. Because with basketball, it's people would ask me, what's it like to film basketball? What's it like to play it versus what's it like to play it? When you're playing real games, you're going against another team. There's things that are out of your control. You don't know what the referee's going to do, et cetera, right? Everything has to be in sync when you're trying to tell it for a story. And so everything you saw, with the block shots, et cetera, you're working with the other actors who might be wearing a different uniform to try to create something that looks legitimate. And so I feel like there's obviously there's not the worry about something surprising happening, right? It's you're gonna just you're trying to stick to the plan. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it was and it's hard not to just have an immense amount of reverence, first and foremost, for the story of these these literal giants. When you're talking about Magic Johnson, Jerry Buss, Spencer Haywood, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I mean, giants, right? Cultural giants. And then on top of that, HBO does not want to put out crap, right? They want to put out something incredible. And so it's your A game has to be there. You got to be locked in. And so yeah, man. And I feel I'm really thankful for the people I was surrounded by, because I feel everybody was a consummate professional. And, just really, you're talking about Oscar winners, Pulitzer Prize winners, Emmy winners, but everybody was bringing their A game every single day. There was to see someone like a John C. Reilly be a little bit anxious. It's wow, that's amazing. Because this is someone who has been in the game a long time, who is exceptional at what they do, but they're still a little bit, they just want to make sure everything's tied up. So,
So do you feel like with the preparations that you learned through playing and the lessons that you learned through playing ball, that you're able to take that into the role of Kareem with your preparation of learning your lines and, during rehearsals? Did it give you some flashbacks of, kind of pregame walkthrough, doing your scouting reports? Were you able to take any of those moments and kind of apply that to your prep and also to your character?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you know, obviously I feel like stretching was something that I was like really like that was part of my routine, just mentally and physically. I wanted to always be in a place where I'm just like loosening up. Right. And so, you know, I did that in the mornings in my trailer. And so I think, you know, I really wanted to be disciplined about how I approached it, because, you know, there's a budget, there's a timeline. You got to make sure, you know, you're getting stuff done, you know, in the proper amount of time so we can move on to the next project or whatever. And so for sure, I mean, I really wanted to draw from that, from my experience as a basketball player. One of the things that was that I really appreciated, I feel like the ethos was, you have to put yourself out there and risk failure, because that's where you find the creative stuff. Like you really put yourself out there, risk looking stupid, and that's when you make new discoveries. And I feel like it reminded me of like some of the better coaches or trainers that I had the opportunity to play with. I feel like the coaches who are like so rigid and so they're so much of a perfectionist mindset, where when you make a mistake, they're pulling you, right? I feel like I experienced far too many of those when I played. So as a basketball player, it didn't make basketball that much fun for me. But in this space, it's like they want you to just like throw yourself out there, and then we'll see what we can get from it. So I feel like that's you know, I feel like if when I think of my basketball career, I wish there had been a little bit more of that from like leadership around just like failure is where the learning happens, versus like, oh, you know, we can't lose, which, you know, I mean, it's like ultimately, I mean, and you guys all know this, at the end of the day, what we get out of the game is so much more than just the points, right? The wins and losses, right? And so so that's something that I feel like, you know, just in this now, in this creative space, reflecting on my basketball career, I'm like, you know, I don't know that I'll ever coach, but I feel like I'm sure that when you think of like some of these great coaches, that's part of the way they teach. That's part of like who they are and how they show up in their leadership styles.
Well, I mean, as a professor, you know, I mean, we're going to dive into a little bit of everything, but you know, in many ways, is that how you would approach your classes?
Oh, absolutely.
Where you would want your students to go ahead and go out on a limb and at least try.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you fail, then, you know, we can go ahead, we can take some steps back,
right?
You know, revamp and go from there.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And I know you guys can, like, you can relate to this. I feel like with basketball, it's because the presence of the crowd, it's the presence of like the thousands of judges who are like critiquing and scrutinizing every single thing you do. Right. In a classroom, right, that's like a safer learning space where, you know, we all have the same goal, right? We want to walk out of here smarter than we walked in. Whereas I feel like some of that gets lost in the shuffle when it comes to basketball and just the production around sports. And so yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like the classrooms that I thrived in were the classrooms where I felt like I had an instructor and not just a grader. And, you know, and I try to, this is things that I'm trying to talk to my kids about all the time. Is like, you know, like it's obviously we don't want you to come home with F's on your report card, but at the end of the day, it's more than just the grade. It's you really digging in and finding like the things that you're passionate about in that space, in that learning space, right? Because that's the thing that's going to sustain you long term. So, and I think about that with basketball. I mean, like, I keep coming back to you, Aaron, because like, I just like, I've watched you since we were kids, and your passion for the game, bro. It's like, mine was not even in the same universe, but I just like admire it so much, because it's like, again, it's sustained you. It's why you look like you're 25 now and you could still hoop, right? And so I feel like it's such a,
but it's, you know, you guys are both educators, you know, and, you know, Kevin's working with middle schoolers, you know, where you're just dealing with balls of just hormones and you just never know what's going to come at you. You know, you're dealing with college age students, you know, again, hormones all over the place. You don't know what's going on. And, you know, and then from my standpoint, I'm dealing with, you know, a bunch of athletes and transitioning out into, you know, other work, you know, and all of us, we approach, because just like with what you're saying, the good coaches I played for were the ones who said, you know what, try it, go for it.
Wow.
You know, okay, you did it with the right hand, do it with the left hand now.
Yeah.
And you're looking at, but it's game time. I don't care, do it. Now you got real pressure. Let's see what happens. You know, so it's about being able to take those lessons that we've learned. Yeah, we can all say that we played for more bad coaches than great coaches. But those great coaches have had such a huge impact on us. And those are the lessons that we use in the game of life.
Yeah.
You know, and as I always tell people, you know, a lot of times when we look at, you know, who we really click with, you know, whether it's, you know, the significant other, it's the people who we hang out with, our coworkers, it's usually the people who understand the concept of team sports.
Yeah.
Because that's been a part of our lives. And, you know, understanding that at some points, you know, we may have to lead, we may have to follow, you know, and regardless of what we do, we're all teachers, because at some point we're having to teach something, and then we're having to absorb, you know, information as well. So can you be humble enough to absorb something that you don't know, and being able to say, hey, I don't know this. You're the expert. You're the Golden Globe winner. You're the Oscar winner. Let me shut up for a little bit, and you just show me how it's done, and I'm going to take notes, and please let me ask 1,000 questions, because I'm going to have 1,000 questions.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah.
No,
Solomon,
like that.
was there any sorry, Kev, was there any scene in particular that was your favorite to film?
Oh man. Oh gosh. You know, I'll say this. I don't know that. Everybody was so fun to work with. Everybody was a lot of fun to work with. I'll say that. I will say, as the series progressed, I can look back and watch and see, like, oh, I was more comfortable. Oh, I was more comfortable, because we filmed the pilot in 2019, and then COVID happened. So everything basically got shut down for a year. So all the prep that I was doing just up until the pilot, it was like I had a year to even double down on that and really just try to work on the craft, et cetera. And so I think, man, I mean, the basketball stuff was fun, because it's like, my memories of the Forum, my earliest memories, like we couldn't afford Lakers tickets, but when we got to watch them on TV, it's like I always remember the court. It just looked like a golden dance floor, and it just looked like these spectacular athletes that are doing these incredible things. And so, you know, everything in the Forum was always just incredible, for sure. But I mean, honestly, like, there wasn't a scene where I wasn't having fun. Like, it was, you know, and when I say fun, it was like, you know, equal parts terrifying, but equal parts fun and rewarding. So, and I worked with incredible people. So
I always think about the pressure of just we have pressure situations where you're taking a last second shot or something like that, but you don't have time to think about it. It just happens quickly, and suddenly all of a sudden the ball's in your hand. You're just like, I got to score. And you don't really think about it. It's not something you're dwelling on. I always think about, if you're in, you know, acting a scene and you have to make a shot, they're shooting and you have to make that. Even like, I know there's different camera angles, but when I forgot that Kareem shot a hook shot, a sky hook from the foul line. I completely forgot until I was like, oh, I think I remember seeing scenes of that. But even like something like that, where you have to shoot the ball and it's like, okay, you have to make this. Like, well, you know how to do this. That's something I'd be like, oh shit, because
oh my gosh, no, Keith, that is, sorry, Kevin, that is so real. Like the joke was, it's a whole different game when they say cameras up. You know, when they say cameras up, then it's like, oh, okay, this is, you know, because like, you know, I'm like, I was getting to the point where I could hit like 10 in a row from the free throw line, you know, like easy, just easy peasy. And then cameras rolling, then like, oh, okay, this, yeah. And so yeah. And then actually that day we were wearing height shoes. So it just added to the difficulty of it. And so, yeah, that day was a doozy for sure. And the other thing about it is I was shooting it from a different angle than where he actually shot it from, right? I mean, obviously he's the most deadliest skyhook shooter ever, but he was coming from going left. What am I saying? He was going, okay, now he was coming towards the basket. Whereas the way I was shooting it was like going away from the basket. Because it just worked out with the camera angle or whatever. I'm still sure he would have made that, but I did. You know, I missed a lot that day. I'll say that I missed a lot. So I made a few, but I missed a lot. So, yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, I look at, you know, and I like how you were speaking about how you looked at the Forum. You know, we grew up at the tail end of Showtime.
Right.
Yeah, that was our local teams were the Clippers and the Lakers. And, you know, we'd watch Channel 9, watch the Laker games, you know, Channel 5 would have all the Clipper games. And just like Solomon was saying, when you used to watch the Laker games, and you're listening to Chick Hearn and Chick's going through, you know, his spiel at the end of the game because the game's over. And, the Jello's jiggling in the refrigerator and everything else. That was, Chick Hearn. And people don't realize Chick coined slam dunk. That was his saying. He invented that. But we had Chick doing that. We had the Clippers and Lawler's Law, going on. First one to 100, usually wins. And it was just those things. But when we used to watch the Laker game, and I'm sure Solomon, looking back at the old tapes and everything, there was just something magical about the form.
Absolutely.
You're looking at the sidelines and it's just like, okay, these different people are at the games, they're watching and, they're fans. And then you'd watch the Clipper games, they're playing in the dungeon at the LA Sports Arena.
Straight up dungeon, right?
Yeah. And I mean, and that's, it's literally night and day.
Oh my gosh, right.
Between the two. But how much of that did you remember just from being a kid, of being able to watch the tail end of the Showtime Lakers? Because I really kind of started watching basketball, I'd say is about kind of 89. I really remember like 89, 90, Kareem's taking his farewell, tour.
Yeah.
Everybody's giving him his different gifts. But that's kind of my earliest, when I just remember really sitting down. Like I remember things, prior to a game here, game there. But that's when I was really focused on. But how much of that did you pull?
Yeah, so I had older siblings, and so who were interested enough in the game, and so I think my first memory was the first Celtics Lakers series, and everybody. I'm not going to out the one sibling who's going for the Celtics, but everybody in the house is going for the Lakers. It's like, why? And it was like they were just doing it just to be annoying.
Yeah.
I remember that. But yeah, to your point, I remember, at Cal, we would play USC when they were in the sports arena, and there's like pigeons flying around in the arena. And so it's like you said, just two completely different worlds, the Forum versus the sports arena. And so, so I mean, I think like I very much remember the Bird Magic, Bird Johnson like rivalry. My dad was a huge fan of Kareem's because he had, I think it just Giant Steps. I think he wrote it in '83 or early '80s. And so I saw the book around the house. It's like one of the first big books I read. And so, I mean, even though I wasn't necessarily watching every single game, they were having a lot of success. And so it was easy to have an awareness of who they were. And so, yeah.
That's crazy. Now, kind of when you look at, I'm all in my feelings right now. So I'm talking a lot about feelings. That final time, the show wraps, you kind of know what you've given, and then do you see this? Is there a screening that you guys all sit down and see, or are you getting like clips and stuff here and there, or is it like that final project comes out and you're watching it like, holy shit, this is incredible?
I'm trying to remember. So I will say, Rap Day was absolutely emotional. I mean, it was because it was a grind. It was an absolute grind. And I think, I think the other thing that made it particularly challenging was we were doing it during COVID. So the testing, so it was like, basically your time on set increased by at least an hour because you had to clear. You had to test and clear before you could even step on set. And so I mean, in this first season, so we're still figuring a lot of stuff out in terms of like how to incorporate basketball, et cetera. But yeah, Rap Day, it was actually pretty cool because they turned on like these disco lights when they rapped. I think it was Quincy, me, Delonte, Devon, and Jamil all at the same time, at the same moment. And we were just like, and I definitely got a little emotional, and it was cool because there were a couple people from the crew who like this was their last job. They'd been in the industry for years or whatever. But we would see like unedited snippets of stuff, but it wasn't until like I saw the pilot at the premiere, and we got to see it in a theater on a big screen, and that was crazy, and it was so much fun. And so and I feel like every time I watch it, I'm like, wow, because part of being on that project was you're working somewhat in a silo where you're just working on your portions of the script. So then you get to see what everyone else is doing. You get to see the music mixed in, and the music, I think that's one of my favorite parts of it. Mm-hmm. And just the stuff with the green screen, just the visual effects. It's just, I mean, I'm wowed every time I watch it.
I felt like, oh no, go ahead, man.
Were any of the other actors on the cast basketball players, and did you guys play any pickup when you were out there?
Dude, so okay, a lot of the guys that played background are like playing professional ball now, like on the side, like they're like, this was like an in-between gig. So there was always horse 21 all the time. There was I for the most part, I stayed in my lane and just, you know, shot around. But there was a pickup game where I got picked first, and I was like, this is amazing, and this is the last time I'm going to play in this game, and so. But I held it down for the 40-year-olds. I got a couple of dunks, but
nice.
Yeah, there was some like really, really talented hoopers for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. What I was going to ask is, you know, when you were out there and you were finally catching your groove, you know, as far as with the acting bug, did you feel like it was the same type of groove when you're playing, you know, during a season, when you know, been able to string together,
Yes,
you know, a handful of just, you know, good solid games where you're not even necessarily thinking, you're just reacting. You know, you're prepping properly, you know, you know, everything that you do, you know, you're getting onto, you know, the set, and everything is just, you know, clicking.
absolutely. I mean, it's somebody was talking about this, but it's like I think Wood Harris would talk a lot about this. It's like, you know, you find when you kind of find your routine based on how you feel the day went, or, you know, when you see the work, right? And so I was very conscious of trying to make sure I was aware of, you know, what I was doing prior to shooting days, what I was doing that morning, and so yeah, I mean, it's like it's hard not to get into that groove because you're around a bunch of vets, right? So like, you know, it was the scene starting that we're on episode 10 where I kind of like asked Adrian a question without really even thinking about it, because for the most part, I really wanted to, like, especially on set, not really crowd people. And he was so gracious, and just, he's a pro because he's directed stuff, he's produced stuff, he's starred in stuff. So just the way he thinks technically, like, it's hard not to like be locked into that mode because you're around people who, like, you know, they have the 30,000 foot view plus a 30-foot view. And so like, you know, like you learn the jargon, you know, you understand marks, you understand all that. And so like hearing that, yeah, it just makes it's less of a foreign world that you're stepping into. And you're like, you really understand, oh, I know what the sound mixer is talking about. I know what you know, in terms of lighting, I understand what they're saying now. So yeah.
I love that. Getting into the groove is so important. And just seeing it in different occupations. I mean, we talk about it a lot with, you know, athletes when they have to transition into a career. It takes a while to transition to get into that groove and figure out your day-to-day. But Solomon, honestly, I could sit here and talk to you all day. And when Aaron goes out to LA to visit, I'm probably going to tag along and just hang out in the back. You don't have to talk to me. You just, you know, just like wave every once in a while. I'll be like, I know him. But this has been really cool, just as a fan of Winning Time, as a fan of basketball and the Showtime Lakers, and just a fan of yours. I think this has been a really fun show, and I really appreciate you coming on.
For sure, we should do it again, man. I feel like we have so many relatable experiences, life experiences, and so when I heard you say 16, I was like, yeah, all right, he gets it. He gets it.
Yep. It's all about it's all six. Once you're 6'10", listen, Aaron. Like, okay, Aaron. Because Aaron is obviously.
I'm little. I'm 6'6". I'm little.
It's 6'6". I would just say, like, anytime. It's funny because my roommates from college, they played baseball, and they were like 6'2" and 6'4", and people were like, they're huge for baseball players. And then I walk in, and they're like, oh, never mind. You're nothing. Sit down.
No, I mean, it was just, you know, great opportunity. You know, I know Solomon and I, we reconnected, you know, a couple years back, you know, through our mutual friend, you know, Brian Weathers, shout out to Brian. You know, and he was another, you know, Inland Empire kid as well.
That's
you know, who had, you know, opportunities to, you know, take the sport, you know, to the next level. And, you know, he's gone back to his old high school, and, you know, he's coaching. And, you know, Brian and I, you know, we got stories upon stories about, you know, running through the valley, you know, and everything. But, you know, again, you know, it's one of those things, you know, he's teaching, you guys teach, you know, I've taken on a project myself, you know, doing kind of a big brother mentor, you know, situation with a kid, you know, and it's really all the lessons, you know, that we've, you know, experienced and that we've taken on. And again, it comes back to, well, the things that we learn through hoops, they can literally be applied to anything in life.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
You know?
So, yeah. One last quick favorite, Aaron, one of my favorite Aaron Maxson stories before I got to jump. So, Aaron, do you remember when we played, I think it was our junior year, we played Bishop Montgomery. We played you guys in CIF.
No, you didn't play us. So I was in the stands. He played my old high school. So I transferred that year. So I was watching because it was you, Alvin, Delano. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. So
So
you didn't, no. Okay.
No, so I was just watching the game. So that was my old high school, Temesco Canyon. You guys came in and whooped up on them too.
Right.
Okay. I'm like, because the boys on the team I'd known since like third grade, since I moved to Lake Elsewhere. So I'm like, look, these are my guys. I'm not going to give you a fake scouting report. Like, you guys better be ready. You don't. All right, fine, because it's going to be a blowout.
Okay, so now I'm like, okay, now the wires are clicking, because I'm like, for some reason I was like, okay, we were playing Aaron's team, but Aaron was not playing. Like there was something going on. So now, okay, that's what that was. All right. So what I was going to say, I remember walking into the gym, and I think we learned really late that you were not playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, like please, like we're about to like run through these dudes. So
right,
but you would have given R4 work. So it was a good day for him that you were not playing.
Well, I mean, and the funny thing is, with Alvin and Delano, and I want to say Brandon was also playing on the team. That's right,
Brandon was on the squad.
Yeah, Brandon was playing. Yeah. I played with all those guys. I met them a couple years earlier through Rockfish.
Yeah, that's right.
So we all played together, Rockfish, and we'd had that relationship. And again, it comes full circle with the SoCal circle of hoops.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody knows everybody. The degree of separation is literally only one.
Man. Right.
But because actually you guys played that game. That was the high school I was going to, that I transferred to. But the school that you were playing against, they just had a little auxiliary gym at the time.
Okay.
So there was no that, and when I say little auxiliary gym, it might hold about 350 people.
Yeah.
So that's where we used to play our games, and literally would pack people in. So there's no way you guys are going to be able to play in there. So they just moved the game.
Oh my God!
I went to the game saying I want to go ahead and watch this destruction go on, because I already know it's going to happen. These are my guys.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Well, Solomon, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome. Yeah. We appreciate it. And we're psyched to have you. Definitely for part 2.
Yeah, for sure, man. No, this is fun. I love this. Yeah. Awesome.
This has been the Overseas Famous Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.